He probably thought that in Saint-Sulpice he should have his 100 stops.
So what brought Cavaillé-Coll to Saint-Sulpice?
Now this is an incredible story. It's an incredible story. As you see this great case, this instrument, the first instrument built in this monumental case was built by François-Henri Clicquot in 1781, as you can see here, 1781. And in the beginning of the 19th century, the house d'Aublaine et Calinet in 1835 started a restoration. And this restoration did last over 20 years. The house d'Aublaine et Calinet made bankruptcy, and then it was Ducroquet who followed and took over this restoration.
And how much was the restoration to cost?
They tell it cost over 60,000 francs. A great amount of money. And what was very sad is that at the end of all this great period, nobody was really satisfied with the work. And probably because Aristide Cavaillé-Coll had built this wonderful instrument of Saint-Denis. So here the people were very, very sad. They have had in the 18th century an instrument which was well known from the north of Germany to the south of Spain. I mean the instrument by Clicquot, played by a very brilliant organist whose name was Nicolas Sejean, and there in the 19th century they were very, very, very sad that the organ was no more of this quality. And so the restoration of Ducroquet was finished in 1855. The same year Cavaillé-Coll was asked to maintain the instrument here. 1 year later they asked him to do a new proposal for a complete new restoration, and in 1857 they signed a complete new restoration. And this is all due to a priest, Abbé Lamazou. He was a great admirer of Aristide Cavaillé-Coll, and he did find the right argumentation to convince the parish and the priests of Saint-Sulpice to start all over again. He said that the day after the dedication of the organ of Saint-Denis, the organ in Saint-Sulpice had lost all his fame. And so the people were very impressed about all this, and they decided to start all over the restoration.
And the restoration took how many years?
Then Cavaillé-Coll did start here in 1857, and it lasted 5 years until 1862.
Who was the organist during the time of that restoration?
During the time of that restoration, there was a German organist here, Georg Schmidt. And he then, when the organ was finished, in 1862, of course, he played for the dedication. There was also César Franck, Alexandre Guillemot, Camille Saint-Saëns played also during the dedication. But shortly after, people thought that he was not the right organist to play this great instrument. The instrument became then very shortly famous all over the world, especially because the very famous organist of Breslau, Adolf Hesse, who was recognized as a very great interpret of the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, he came here and he played the instrument and made a great eloge of the instrument. And so it became very shortly, it became very famous all over the world. But they, Cavaillé-Coll and many other musicians, thought that Georg Schmidt was not the right organist for this instrument. So the most famous organist of the time, Lefebvre-Wely, was invited to become the organist in 1863, and he stayed here until his death, 1869.
When you mentioned Hesse from Breslau, there was a student of Hesse who also cast a great shadow in Paris around that time, Lemens.
Exactly, exactly. This, of course, is very important because in the 1840s, Jacques-Nicolas Lemens came for the first time to Paris, and it was on a Sunday morning. Lefebvre-Wely was playing his organ at La Madeleine, and this young man entered the organ loft, and he presented himself to Lefebvre-Wely, saying that his name and that he had taken some lessons with Adolf Hesse. And Lefebvre-Wely, gentleman, told him, please play the offertory, play the postlude. And Lefebvre-Wely was amazed and very admirative of the wonderful technique, the pedal technique, because at that time, unfortunately, the French organ school was very poor. The technique, they had no more pedal technique and played terrible music. And this young man was playing music by Johann Sebastian Bach. So from that day on, Lemens became always more loved in Paris as an organist. He played many concerts, dedications, and his playing was so wonderful, so great, that several people of the authority of the organ world, also Cavaillé-Coll, really would have liked him to become an organist in Paris. Also, when the famous Niedermeyer school opened in 1852, Cavaillé-Coll hoped very much that Lemens would become the organ teacher in this school. But Lemens, he did want to stay in Brussels. So Cavaillé-Coll got the idea, if he doesn't come to us, we are going to send him some young organists. The first was Alexandre Guillemot, and the second was Widor.
Widor, of course, who became ultimately the organist of Saint-Sulpice. Could you comment on the style of Lemens' teaching of Guillemot and Widor? What did he offer them that was so radically different from what was being done in Paris at the time?
Of course, the Lemens school is a very precise school with precise rules, and this was not the case in France in the first part of the 19th century. We have to come back to the Revolution. The Revolution has unfortunately shut all the church music schools which were attached to every cathedral. They were shut, and so the great French tradition of playing technique was broken. And after the Revolution, a man like Choron tried very much to get back this tradition, but without success. And we have to wait until the Niedermeyer school, which was a private school, and this was opened by le Prince de la Moscova. You know, it was a private school. He got his money, you know, for this. And there again, the real church music style was taught for the choirs and for the organists. You know, they did a wonderful job. But all this first part of the 19th century, it was just a catastrophe, you know. The repertoire of the organists became very poor. The choirs did sing, and the soloists did sing opera comic music in the churches. You know, it was quite terrible. And the organists, we can say they were pianists playing the organ. Very, very little pedal technique, no legato. You know, they did not play the right value of the notes, of the rests, and so on. And of course, they played with a great rubato, the great rubato. One great musician and composer has been taught like this, and is César Franck. And we really have to play his music as he thought it and with his way of playing. You know, we should not play the music of César Franck with the technique of Clemens. That I think that it would be wrong. But of course, as you understand, after the coming back of Widor, of Guilmant, this great organ school it spread all over France, and the way of playing of César Franck, of Lefebvre Belli, was more and more forgotten. And then perhaps I did not answer very good your question, but the great difference between the school of Lemens is, as you can understand, having again a pedal technique to play the works by Bach, because this was also something which was completely lost. You know, in the first part of the 19th century, nobody played the music by Bach. Nobody played, and nobody did. The priests and the public did not want the music by Bach to be played. They thought that it's very boring music. Very boring, you know. One organist in Paris, his name was Alexandre Pierre François Boély. He was still playing music by Bach. He was writing nice canons. He was writing fugues, but they thought he is very boring, and the priests did throw him out of his position. He was organist at Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois, you know, the church just across from the Louvre. But he was boring, you know. He was thrown out of his church.
They were more in favor of the opera style music at that time.
Yes.
So we find the church music state at that time in what we would almost call a deplorable state.
Yes.
And Widor then received the appointment at Saint-Sulpice in 1870, is that correct?
1870, exactly, yes.
So the monumental work of Widor was born as a result of his appointment here.
We can say this, yes. We can say this. His symphonies have been inspired by Saint-Sulpice, but you know, he loved also you know, all the, you know, we cannot say that of all the instruments of Cavaillé-Coll, every instrument is so beautiful. You know, we cannot say this is better than the other. You know, when you play Saint-Étienne, Caen, when you play Saint-Ouen, you know, when you play Toulouse, Saint-Cernin, all these great instruments which are still in the original condition, they are so great. So, you know, and Widor was very impressed by the instrument in Saint-Ouen, in Rouen. He was very impressed, you know. He said, "C'est un orgue à la Michel-Ange." You know?
As Michelangelo would have built an organ.
Yes, you know.
When Vidor received the appointment here, it was not without a little unhappiness that some other organists in Paris did not receive the appointment. Franck, for instance, was interested in receiving the post.
Yes, Franck was also candidate. Yes.
And the public, what was the public perception of Vidor being named organist of Saint-Sulpice?
There were some great difficulties. Secondly, we must remember that 1870 is the time of very difficult relations between France and Germany, and this will happen to give the war. Terrible thing. And because of the fact that Vidor was trained in Brussels by a student of Hesse, who was a German, a very famous German organist, the head priest of Saint-Sulpice got many letters of protest by the public, by the organists of Paris. They said, first, he is much too young, and secondly, he plays like the German. So the head priest of Saint-Sulpice was very afraid. You know. He said, I am starting to name him as a provisional, how would you say?
Interim
organist, yes. And so he started here like interim organist. 1 year later, Vidor thought, I am going to say my best wishes now to the head priest, and he will perhaps make me titular organist. And so he went for the 1st January and said all his best wishes to the head priest, but the head priest and Vidor did not remember this, and so Vidor stayed at this position for 63 years until the age of 90 as an interim organist.
That's quite a long interim position.
It's quite a long interim position.